strong critic of gender ideology in schools and a former Chilliwack school trustee named Barry Neufeld is at risk for being arrested today, he says. It's November 24th. I'm Drea Humphrey with Rebel News, standing in front of the Chilliwack Law Courts, where Mr. Neufeld is expected to arrive any moment and surrender himself after a warrant. Many of you know the name Barry Neufeld. We've interviewed him many times with his plight over taking a stand against radical gender ideology in schools, which among many things has paved the way for sexually explicit books like the ones you're seeing on the screen right now for being normalized under the name of the Sexual Orientation Gender Identity Program, SOGI 123. And if you have something to say against it, like Barry Neufeld or many parents, well, you're told you're in breach of human rights in BC because gender identity is protected. So Mr. Neufeld has had many news stories on him over the years as he sat as a school trustee and after, speaking out against this issue. And one of those plights for him had been a defamation lawsuit, which relates to what is about to happen here today. That defamation lawsuit was brought on against Barry Neufeld by his former colleague and current vice chair of the Chilliwack School Board, Carin Bondar. She also works with students, yet at the same time has very sexually explicit videos available for people, including students, to look up on YouTube that include her mixing science, like kids learn about, with, well, sex.
Varied forms are derived. Yes, organisms still evolve. The experts have worked hard to solve the complex processes. Get familiar with that.
That was just a taste of some of the videos that concerned Barry Neufeld as far as he believed should be appropriate for someone sitting on the school board, including her being completely naked swinging on a wrecking ball. But when Mr. Neufeld was interviewed by Action for Canada and referred to Bondar as a strip-tease artist, well, according to the courts, that was enough to be found at fault for defaming Bondar and ordered to pay her over $50,000. Now, I don't believe she's received a penny of that money over a year later, which has to do with why Mr. Neufeld is expected to come in here and surrender himself. It is a default on appearances, I suppose, so we'll talk to him to get more about that if we get a chance before he comes in. But in the meantime, why don't we talk to some of his supporters who have showed up as well. Now, why was it important to come out here and I guess support Barry today?
I've been friends with Barry for many years. He spoke out originally, I think in 2017, to protect children and warn us that SOGI was coming down the education system. We didn't understand what it was at the time. They sold it as inclusion, and now we know that it's not inclusion, it divides everybody.
Because Barry is my friend, and when I have asked him for help, he simply showed up. So it was important to be here to support him in this.
As a Christian man here, we're exercising our civil rights and freedoms, and that we're standing in support of protecting children from confusion.
Well, I'm finally turning myself in on a warrant. I was the victim of a very unjust sentence where I was accused of defaming somebody who already had defamed herself, I think. But they want to examine my finances and determine how and when I can pay the $53,000 that they claim I owe to Carin Bondar. And so I'm here. They had been trying to serve me for personal service for over a year, but I've had so many threats in my life that I don't go to the door when I don't recognize the person at the door. And sometimes they'd leave a note behind that some company had a delivery for me, but I never ordered anything from them, so I never phoned them back. So after a year of being frustrated, Bondar's lawyer went to the court and asked for permission to serve me by email, but she sent it to an email that I never use. And so I didn't show up for court, and she asked the court to issue a warrant for my arrest. So here I am.
Well, that's the thing. You think it would be common sense to err on the side of caution at the very least when it comes to what we're teaching kids in schools, yet here we are with these extreme things coming out. You're a member of the LGB community. I noticed you dropped the T. What's that about?
Well, recently we've gotten together in Canada for LGB Alliance Canada, which is connected to LGB Alliance UK. And we're strongly speaking out just that we are LGB people, same-sex rights, protecting children, no males in female places, no females in male places. Boys want to be protected too.
I am a detransitioner, so I lived in the trans delusion for 17 years. And it is the difference between the lies they tell and the truth that they know. The research has clearly shown that even with adults, transitioning decreases physical health and it decreases mental health. And they've deliberately, Joanna Olson-Kennedy has deliberately suppressed research that indicates that transitioning children doesn't help. And it's important to stand up and say, it's time for the truth to come out. We need to be able to openly talk about what's actually being shown by the research.
What would it mean to actually have to pay the amount that you owe? Is that something you're able to do?
I could pay some money from my grocery money, and I could go to the food bank. She's just doing it out of spite and anger, and I suppose I will have to pay something, but I'm not going to pay it willingly. They're going to have to make an order for me to pay it.
Is it your belief that you may be arrested?
There is a warrant for my arrest that the sheriffs are in possession of. They've had it for over 2 weeks. They haven't acted on it. And it's weirdly worded. It says that I'm supposed to serve 1 day in Board Mountain Correctional Center. And interestingly enough, I was delivered to court today by a correctional officer from Board Mountain Camp. I was a probation officer. I was an officer of this court for many years. I visited Board Mountain many times to interview inmates. And so this probably Carin Bondar thinks is her great triumph. The reason I haven't backed down is because I believe children are being put at risk by dangerous ideology. Not only dangerous ideology, but nowadays modesty, purity, chastity are considered reprehensible, and that's what I've always stood for, and I'm not going to back down.
Well, I'm not sure if you caught that, but during the prayer, the sheriffs clearly came out to, I guess, apprehend Mr. Neufeld, and I don't know if it was the power of the Holy Spirit convicting them to go back inside and give him more time, but he's out here still mingling with his supporters for now. I'm keeping an eye on the door, and usually, like Neufeld said, you don't go to jail for something like this. You might get held for the day, but he says they've actually written on his document that he could be held somewhere else, so we'll stay tuned. Oh, looks like it's...
Yes?
Come with us. Bruce, got a chance to have a good shot, put some time? Good. All right, sir, you're under arrest. Please come in here with me, okay? Thanks.
All right.
Well, there you have it. Mr. Neufeld has officially been arrested and led into the courthouse. We'll see whether or not he's released in a few hours, a day.
I was very much reminded of when I was released during my Claquett trial, I walked into the sentencing of the Chilliwack People's Movement, the Stotlium people who were doing logging road blockades, and they had a very powerful prayer circle then that kept the law at bay. And I was so struck by 31 years later, here I am back outside the courthouse, back with people of faith who are sacrificing themselves for very important principles. So it was a very moving experience for me and a real honor to have been invited by Barry.
Where do you think the fight against radical gender ideology for kids is today in Canada?
I would say we're at a very hopeful point. What is going on in Alberta is very exciting. The government has stood up and said that we do not trust the courts in this matter. We are invoking the notwithstanding clause. We are going to engage in the research, find out what the facts of the matter are actually indicating regarding what gets called puberty blockers and what gets called a medication that doesn't cause harm, and find out if there actually are harms occurring.
Well, I think the problem is that we are becoming two countries.
Well, we hope that tide is changing here. We know that the hospitals throughout Europe they're stopped the transgenderism. They know it's the public is aware. They're even in the gay community. They're speaking out against it. They're saying that it's harming children, and they're not for that. When the gay community is saying it's got to stop, that should wake people up and say there's something's obviously wrong here. So these people now that are transitioning back, there's a huge voice right now that are speaking out and saying this is wrong. They've been hurt. Some of them can't have children again. Some of these young women now, fortunately, they stopped before they went too far with it. They've been mutilated by having their breasts removed. Now they're emotional traumatized because now they can't. I'm almost getting choked up here. They can't breastfeed their child. This has got to stop.
Well, there you have it. Barry Neufeld has been arrested. I did ask some questions at the front desk. They couldn't give many answers. He was handcuffed, taken to a room in the back, and we'll see how long. I won't know at this moment, but I will write in the written article for this report, which you can find in the description box below, how long he was held for. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and throw to his lawyer, who's not representing him right now, but represented him in this defamation case. I want to talk to him about some of the things that he believes were out of character with the ruling.
The interesting thing about the Bondar case is that, in my view, it reflects very much the concerns of many people as to the impact on the courts of certain ideological narratives, and the fact that when someone like Neufeld is before the court, he tends to get treated differently from those who may be perhaps more on side with the ideological or philosophical sort of underpinnings of the governments which establish the legal system and which appoint the lawyers. So from the outset in Neufeld's case regarding Carin Bondar, in my view, it was quite clear that Neufeld had an uphill battle to have the law applied fairly. I'm talking about the principles of defamation law, and to have all of the facts considered before the court. An abundance of evidence showing that Dr. Bondar had promoted herself through online and very graphic and explicit video performances.
The average human erection is 13 centimeters long. The average chimpanzee erection is only 8. And the unfortunate gorillas. And really, Barry could have described her in much less innocuous terms and been factually accurate in my view. But the trial judge simply didn't make mention of any of that.
he took a very, very narrow focus. He didn't pay, in my view, sufficient regard to the fact that these are political adversaries who were in a heated political campaign. So anyway, we went to the Court of Appeal. We felt that the trial judge had taken a very artificial and narrow and unrealistic view of the facts. We went to the Court of Appeal, and a very strong ground of appeal, in my opinion, was the fact that the trial judge had ignored all of the evidence of Carin Bondar's sexualized performances over many years, and like I say, attracting 150 million views. And so we put that evidence before the Court of Appeal. And in fact, during the conduct of the hearing itself, when we got to that particular material, the court asked me to move on. It wasn't necessary to review it. And my understanding from trying to read the bench at the time was that they didn't need to hear from me on this. They could see it for themselves. And it's quite distasteful, really, and quite profane and quite graphic. And so there was no need to review that with the court.
As I sit here, I see I have a text from Mr. Neufeld saying he is out. That text came in for me around 4:30 p.m. and he was already home. So he has, in fact, been released at some point in the afternoon earlier today. And again, more details will be in the written article below about exactly what exactly they arrested him for. But thank you so much for giving us that important clarity, since when people read the decisions, they don't even get to see Barry's side of the story. Thanks, Paul Jaffe. At Rebel News, we don't back down from bringing you the other side of the story to what the mainstream media will have you thinking is safe and inclusive. That's why we have reports like this and many more where you can find out what's happening behind school doors when it comes to gender ideology at our special website called stopclassroomgrooming.com. You can also take action there and share.